Okay.
All right, I think there's two people in the waiting room. It says.
Oh, thanks for pointing that out. Well, Jennifer's already on.
Hi,
And
Bert. I
one of
I
them
was
is
trapped in a waiting room.
Oh, okay, okay. And one
I
is
was able
my
to.
AI. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and get started. I want to welcome everybody to this Honolulu Tech Week event, which is really an information briefing about the Internet Governance Forum. Um, Before we kind of dive into this, uh, I'll I'll preface this by saying that you know a lot of things happen kind of serendipitously, and I got the fortune to go to Geneva for something called the World Summit on the Information Society. And at that summit, I met uh, Anya and Herman, and we were talking about stuff, and it was a very mind expanding kind of experience. And um, so I had that experience. That was in July. When I came back home, I was thinking, oh, it'd be great to have a presentation done by the Internet Governance Forum. And coincidentally, the Honolulu Tech Week took place, and I thought, oh, it's a nice sort of timing to actually have this scheduled. So that's kind of how it came about. And what I want to do uh, is give both Anya and Herman a chance to kind of meet who's here. So I wanted to give everybody a chance to do a quick introduction. I'll go ahead and kick it off. My name is Bert Lum. I'm a bunch of things, but one of them is an instigator for stuff like, how do we close the digital divide? How do we create an environment where, you know, everybody can have access to this technology? And I've been involved with broadband for a long time, but during the last, you know, several years, oh, I see. Oh, last several years, I've been at the state of Hawaii, trying to solve this problem. And for better or for worse, the pandemic helped the country realize that there is this digital divide. And so the federal government created some programs which I became a part of. And so anyway, it's been an interesting journey. And so that's kind of where I'm coming from. And uh, one of the things that really got me to go to Geneva was to kind of better understand what is this particular topic that I sometimes refer to as, digital equity. What is that looked upon as in an international space? Because we were primarily looking at it from Hawaii centric and then a little bit from, the federal government. And it turned out a lot from because they were funding some of the projects that we were about to actually roll out. And then, so I, it was a mind expanding thing just because hearing the kind of talk that we were talking about closing the divide on an international level was very refreshing. Now, I don't mean to talk on endlessly to give you the impression that you can also talk on endlessly. So I will cut that short and just say that, I'm happy to see all of you here. And I would like you to kind of give your name and what you're kind of interested in this particular presentation. Why did you end up coming to this information briefing on the Internet Governance Forum? So maybe we'll just go around and start with Ian.
Hi, everybody. Ian, the Gmail Victor. Yeah, so I'm very, very interested in digital equity, and I've been working with Bert for quite a long time in this space. You're all here at Pictures, so Picture has been around for 40 years, going now. Basically, our kind of work is to foster collaborations across industries, across areas. And our primary thing is we try to bring people together to work on projects that wouldn't be possible if wouldn't be possible if people didn't work together. So we try to look for bigger projects to work on and bring people together. And so we're all coming to the session. And there's actually 2 more sessions after this if you want to hang out.
Hi, I'm Annalyn De Los Santos. I'm just a girl who was interested in internet governance. Professionally, I work for the federal government. It's a long story that you'll ask about. But I partner with the White House and a bunch of federal agencies to work on modernizing tech. So I have a lot of federal experience, and I kind of want to bring that down to the state and just learn what I can do to help.
Are you still with the Fits?
It's a long story.
Oh yeah, we can talk later.
Yeah.
Definitely wanna help you regain your foothold.
Hi, I'm Pete Simon, and about 8 years ago, I started the first co-working space on Kauai. And that's how I came to meet Bert later. From come over to the island, we had a couple conversations about digital equity. We did digital literacy lessons from the co-working space, and that led to us splitting up an AI lab early this year.
Hi, I'm Kim Tyson, and I also live in Hawaii with Pete, and I am an educator and also a UX researcher. And about a year ago, Pete and I, along with 2 other colleagues, started an AI lab at our co-working space, and very interested in digital equity, specifically teaching people in Hawaii how to use AI to help themselves professionally and personally. Thanks, glad to be here.
I,
Did I move the mic over here?
no,
No.
I can say loud words.
Yes.
I just want feral panda. I follow Bert around and I follow Ian around and I drink their coffee. And I pretend like I'm interested in computers. Right.
Hi, Bert.
Hi, Sandy.
Is from Hawaii Technology Development Corporation. We are an agency that our mission and goal is to support tech innovation sector. We're also being sponsored on Tech Week. We've been around since the 80s, actually. I came probably to listen to Bert's talk as well as jump into the sessions after this too.
All right, great, thanks.
Hi, my name is Mike Littleton, from a company called Ford XR. I'm actually based in New York. Technically, you're on vacation, but what's better than the governor's presentation on vacation?
All right.
I actually do a lot of stuff in governance related stuff, especially with equity. I've done a lot of those really dry white papers the IEEE puts out on the topic, but I also do a lot of pro bono help for groups that are trying to put out white papers, trying to do stuff and make connections and so on. That's what my practice does. I devote a certain amount of time to pro bono stuff, and this is one of the spaces I focus on. So I figured since I'd be here, some years ago, a Hawaiian family sort of adopted me into their family. So I come out and see them. It just seemed like a good use of my time. It's still, so it's nice to meet everybody.
Great, thanks.
Sit on vacation, you don't know, dear.
You better make it, worthwhile for you.
Hello everyone, my name is Kevin Barrow. I wear 2 hats. I'm a professor at NYU, where I at the Stern School of Business, and there I focus on sustainable finance and general business and society. And I also run a company called Stewards AI, and we work with local municipalities around 3 areas: climate adaptation, public health, and economic mobility. And all those fall under the umbrella of a just transition. And so what inspired me to come today was I've been following the IGF's work for some time, and both in terms of the digital equity front, but also recently the work that has they've started in terms of climate sustainability and governance. So really interested to hear, from both from Anya.
Great.
Aloha, I'm Sean McLaughlin. I started off doing media access work, so kind of analog equity, you might say, and stuck with the policy side of things and have had a little bit of experience working on it with ICANN groups, special interest groups. But my main interest in being here is I figured everybody here is going to help us get open internet law adopted for Hawaii, right? So secure open internet by state law. So anyway, that's my local agenda, and I figure we'll be inspired by the work you're doing international.
There you go. My name is Sage Guy. I run a company called Civic Nexus. And what we do is we're building a smart bill tracker right now. So what that basically means is AI applied to the legislative process. We're focusing here in Hawaii first, and we'll start to expand to other states. And we're going to be partnering with the Broadband Hui to provide an account so that they can track any broadband bills, help push that legislation forward.
Yeah, great, thanks.
Hello, everyone. I'm Evan Castro. I work in energy tech at a company called Circuit Energy. But other than that, I'm an online gamer. Not a good one. I just try to keep up with my friends. But also interested in like data privacy, and then just our strategic base here in Hawaii. Being in the middle of the Pacific with all of the lines running to here from other places in the world. That kind of infrastructure is really important and interesting to me. So,
Great, thanks. Jennifer, you want to do a quick intro?
Sure, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, wonderful. I'm Jennifer Sunrise Winter. I'm a professor at UH Manoa in the School of Communication and Information in the Communication program. And broadly, I address information policy, in particular data governance and big data governance, governance of AI and so forth. I'm very interested in broadband and digital equity and all of the things Bert is up to. So thank you for inviting me.
Thanks, Jennifer. Okay, so with that, I wanna give both Herman and Anya a chance to introduce themselves.
Thank you so much, Bert, and a very good morning from Geneva. It's such a great pleasure to join you, and I want to thank Bert and all of you for being here and for the invitation to this Tech Week. For us, it's so important to connect with stakeholders and communities, experts around the world. And I have to say, before Bert, we didn't have that much connection with the Hawaii community, and that has really dramatically changed since we met in Geneva. So yes, my name is Anya Gengo, and I work at the IGF Secretariat. We are based at the United Nations office in here in Geneva, and I've been with the Secretariat for the past 10 years. My main responsibility is capacity development in internet governance, and this is something we'll be talking about in the next minutes. But over to my colleague Herman.
Hello, everyone. Thanks all for the introductions. It was very nice to hear a bit about your interest in the session and also a bit about your background. My name is Herman. I joined the IGF Secretariat in April this year. 5 months ago. Before that, I worked 3 years in an IT infrastructure company, and then I had some short stays within another UN agency in the innovation department. And after that, I worked a short time on tech diplomacy in San Francisco before coming to the Secretariat.
So I would preface before we get into the presentation, you might all think, what role perhaps does the IGF play in the circles that you might run into? And one of the key things that I kind of realized was that we can be totally siloed into our world of, whether like I'm in the state and we do stuff around the communities and we work with the counties and, we have a very kind of local, which is nothing's wrong with that. It's a local sort of on the ground view. But then realizing that there's this sort of international movement, and it really brought the idea of, thinking global, acting local. And we pretty much got the acting local pretty good, pretty good. We got that down. But the thinking global, sometimes, we struggle with our sort of identity or role in the middle of the Pacific. I can only speak for myself, but I oftentimes find it quite humorous, but still a little bit stifling when people think that the ninth island is Las Vegas. And I find that, sort of extremely limiting in terms of, how you might have a world view. And so part of why I really wanted to have this presentation was because how do we in Hawaii kind of open up our thinking in terms of, what we can learn on the local level of the projects that we work on and work with, and how do we potentially share that with, an international audience. So it's sort of like elevating the voice of Hawaii beyond just the little circles that we run into. And so that's in a way the context that I wanted to frame this up. And then so I want to now hand it over to Anya, and they have a presentation, but think of it, along those lines. It's really about how do you think global but still act local.
Thank you so much, Bert. So yes, I'm going to share a few slides with you because I think it's going to be easier to follow and focus more about what is the IGF and what's the purpose in terms of serving stakeholders from around the world as per its mandate. So just bear with me for a second as I share this. Hopefully it's coming on your screens.
Yep, looks good.
Wonderful. So let me start maybe from the very beginning of a very long, I would say, history and a little bit of a struggle and advocacy for stakeholders around the world of all backgrounds. So not just the governments, to have a space within the United Nations umbrella where they will all as equals discuss matters pertaining to internet governance. So things basically started in late 90s and early 2000s through the processes of the World Summit on the Information Society that was held in two phases in Geneva and in Tunisia. And at that time, stakeholders requested the United Nations Secretary General to convene a forum that will be multi-stakeholder and that will serve as a platform where everyone can come and discuss that thing that was the internet at the time. What was very exceptional and I would say exotic at the time and unusual is that you had a request coming from different stakeholders, not just the member states, requesting a traditionally intergovernmental multilateral organization and system, to establish something that will serve not just the governments, but everyone, and where everyone will have the same stake. So at the time, what was, I think, the first step for the UN, which is usually the kind of working mechanism, is to establish a working group on internet governance. At the time, it was called the WIGIC, and it was of multi-stakeholder nature, meaning the membership on it, to define what internet governance is, what is the internet about. And long story short, they did coin what was still today known as the working definition of internet governance, but it is something that we actively use, and that's the only definition and description I would say we operate on, which I think you see on the screen. Basically, that internet governance is the development and application by all stakeholders in their respective roles of shared principles, norms, rules, decision-making procedures, and programs that shape the evolution and use of the internet. Something that you do not see here in this working level definition, and something that's so important today, and shortly after this definition was coined, emerged, is the concept of technical community as a standalone stakeholder group. So in the IGF context today, we really operate by knowing four major stakeholder groups. So that's the member states, the governments, private sector, civil society, and also technical community. Of course, the intergovernmental organizations, but also media have their space in these processes. This definition went into what is known as the Tunis Agenda for the Information Society that came out in 2005 out of the Tunisia phase of the WSIS. And at that time, the serving Secretary General of the UN, Mr. Kofi Annan, convened the IGF in mid of July of 2006, and the very first annual meeting of the IGF was hosted just months after by the government of Greece in Athens. And that's basically the beginning of the IGF. Now, before I go into the IGF, I want to speak a little bit about the working structure of it and the modalities. Something that you raised during your introductions was so interesting because you spoke about your background and your interest, and you kind of cited various issues, I would say, or subjects. And what I want to say is that all those subjects really fall under internet governance. So if you look practically, what are the issues discussed under the concept of internet governance, then you can see that it's quite a diverse, broad umbrella of issues. And I always like to borrow this image from our colleagues at Diplo Foundation, where they speak about various kind of clusters or baskets of issues. But technically, everything that we see has implications or relates to the use, development, deployment of digital technologies would fall under the concept of internet governance. Today, yes, you may hear somewhere different terminology used, such as the governance of digital technologies or digital governance, but essentially really comes to the same. And so this, I think, explains that we speak about the legal implications, cybersecurity implications, concept of development, in the UN concept, particularly sustainable development, economic side, social, cultural, human rights, principles overall. So net neutrality has been quite a big topic for years at the IGF, and so on. And so yes, I won't go specifically into this, but at the IGF we start every cycle by, as we are bottom up, by serving or polling, consulting with stakeholders from around the world to see what they would like to see on the agenda. And over the years, these are some of the issues that really emerged as something that we see has been very important to the communities. AI, of course, the past couple of years, and overall emerging tech, but also if you look at access, digital inclusion, the way you avoid internet fragmentation, data governance, cooperation, human rights online, digital economy, and so on. Those are all the issues that you will see discussed under various forms of work within the IGF. Now, a little bit about why the forum is still quite specific, I would even say unique within the UN umbrella. And that's because of the combination of its principles, of this framework of values, that then is implemented through specific set of mechanisms. So as you see here, the core principles of the IGF, as per its mandate and the Tunis Agenda for the Information Society, is that the forum is completely multi-stakeholder. So all stakeholders are treated equally. They participate at equal footing in all IGF activities. The forum is completely bottom-up, which means it needs to respond to the demand of people, stakeholders around the world, open to everyone, fully inclusive, of course, transparent in its work, and certainly non-commercial. The way these principles are applied or implemented in practice very much relates to the structure of the IGF or the mechanisms. And so I would say the heart of the substantive side of the IGF, meaning thematic, is really, in addition to its robust community, the IGF Multi-Stakeholder Advisory Group. So this group is appointed annually by the United Nations Secretary General, and its main task is to advise the Secretary General on what could be the focus or the priority of the annual IGF meetings agenda and also of the intersessional work, following consultations with the community that I mentioned, which we do at the beginning of every year. The MAG is composed currently of 40 members. They come from all stakeholder groups, from all regional groups as per the UN definition, and there is a full gender parity across the group. The current chair of the MAG is Ms. Carol Roach, and she comes from the government of the Bahamas. In
Anya,
addition, yes.
I don't know if it's our screen or your screen, but it timed out, so the presentation is not showing up on our.
Oh, I mean, I can
It-
see it on my screen.
Oh,
Herman, you can see it in Zoom, right? I see you're
Yeah, I
nodding.
can see it in Zoom. Yeah.
It's our side because that time is our time.
okay.
Okay, maybe I can, while you're fixing, because you can hear me, right? I can
Yep,
talk a
yep,
little.
yep.
Then you will see the photo. So in addition to the MAG, I will later talk about the recent UN processes related to governing digital technologies. And one of those processes resulted in expanding the IGF structure. So the past 3 years, in addition to the IGF MAG that's been in place since the beginning of the IGF, we have the new structure, which is the IGF Leadership Panel. So the leadership panel is a 15 body multi-stakeholder nature, and all members are again appointed by the Secretary General following a public call for nominations, just as for the MAG. And the role of the leadership panel is really to strategically guide the IGF toward being more impactful. The chair of the leadership panel currently is Mr. Vince Cerf, so I'm sure known to all of you, known as the father of the internet. And the vice chair is Ms. Maria Ressa, the Nobel Prize winner and CEO and president of Rappler. So the two of them are chairing this group for the past 3 years, and I will speak about the WIS Plus 20 later, but the leadership panel has worked hard the past 3 years to ensure that the IGF becomes, I would say, closer really to people, and that its outputs and outcomes really see kind of application and implementation and practice. And so their final report is expected end of this year. Now, all these structures and all the values and processes are kind of being guarded, I would say, by a neutral secretariat, and that is our office. We are tasked to be a neutral party that's going to ensure that everything is implemented according to the principles and procedures as per the Tunis agenda for the information society. Now, you may wonder how the IGF is funded. That's always, to many, an interesting side. So, although it's part of the UN institutionally speaking, it's not part of the regular budget, but the funding is extra budgetary. And in line with the principle of transparency, you will see if you visit the IGF website who is supporting financially and in kind the IGF, and I would say that the donors pool is also multi-stakeholder. So you will see that there's strong support from the technical community, for example, from the non-commercial sector, from also some civil society organizations, private sector, and the government. Some governments are the biggest donors to the IGF, including some intergovernmental organizations, for example, the European Commission. So this is technically what I already explained to you, the role of this of the SG in all the process. And now with that structure, let me just quickly say what is happening throughout the year. So what's a year-round process? There are technically two most important components of the IGF. One is the annual IGF meeting that is every year hosted by a different government, which we call the host country or the host government. And this year we marked the 20th annual IGF meeting that was hosted by the government of Norway end of June in a town called Lillestrøm near Oslo, the capital. And the IGF usually, in terms of the annual meeting, is hosted in the last quarter of the year, but then this year was exceptional due to some reasons on the host country's side. In addition to the annual meeting, there is a series of activities, which is community-driven, happening in between the two annual meetings, which we call the intersessional work. And my colleague Herman will be speaking later a little bit about the concrete forms that we have for this cycle as well. The essence of all these activities is that everything is multi-stakeholder, everything is planned and implemented bottom up. It's a community-driven process, meaning everything is open to anyone to participate at any point in time. This relates to the annual meeting as well. So this year, for example, Lillestrøm saw 262 different sessions, some of them organized by specifically, for example, member states such as the open forums or IGOs, but the majority, more than 90%, organized by multi-stakeholder communities from around the world. And the outputs of this Lillestrøm meeting are available already at the IGF website in terms of particularly the substance that was discussed. These are the host countries that hosted the IGF so far. As you can see, the US hasn't hosted the IGF yet, but we do have a really close relationship with the community that's very active across the US. And that's mostly through the national IGF of the United States. Usually their annual meeting is happening in DC. But I have to say, as somebody who works very closely with all the national and regional IGFs, and there are 177 of them, I hope that that will change soon, because the country is so big and diverse that there is really a value of kind of touring the country and moving. And I think this meeting and what we are learning about what's happening in Hawaii clearly supports that argument, and hopefully that comes soon into practice. Now, this is about intersessional work and concrete form. So I would like to give floor to my colleague Herman to just walk us through what does it mean, intersessional work, and how can you engage if
Thank you very much, Anya. So as Anya just mentioned, in addition to the annual forums, the IGF is mandated with intersessional work, and this means continuous work between the annual meetings on specific digital topics that are prioritized by the community. The mandated intersessional work consists of best practice forums and policy networks on particular subjects. And both of these are multi-stakeholder forums, where any interested individual or organization can join webinars and newsletters to stay informed. But there are also opportunities for deeper engagement, where the participants can contribute to written reports and other initiatives that are agreed on within the fora. So the best practice forum on cybersecurity, for example, is one of the more established BPFs. Here, representatives from all stakeholder groups and regions are sharing challenges, solutions, contacts, and networks, and of course also best practices on security-related issues. As for policy networks, they have a similar structure as the BPFs, also with a subject matter expert that coordinates the network itself and the work that they pursue. And yeah, three of the most prominent ongoing policy networks are the policy network on internet fragmentation, the policy network on meaningful access, and the policy network on artificial intelligence. And like the BPFs, for the policy networks, anyone from any stakeholder group, region, or country can actively engage in these. For dynamic coalition, this is in addition to the mandated ones, which are the BPFs and the policy networks. There are currently 32 ongoing dynamic coalitions, each focused on a particular issue or a group of issues related to internet governance. All these 32 DCs are community-driven initiatives that works independently, with some of them hosting regular webinars that are also open to all. So I think we can go to the next slide, capacity development. So the IGF is also mandated to drive capacity development through several pathways. So within business engagement, we work to increase the capacity for and understanding of multi-stakeholder governance by increasing participation and cooperation with the business community, both for the annual forums, but also the intersessional work. We also work to increase the participation of parliamentarians and judiciary to increase the stakeholder groups' knowledge on internet governance and digital issues, also as prioritized by the community through intersessional work and annual forums. So more recently, we have developed an own parliamentary track for the annual forums, where parliamentarians from all across the world get together to voice their challenges and discuss best practices for either their region or their own countries. And for newcomers, we also work to lowering the barriers for new people to enter the internet governance community. And also, it's important for us to emphasize the importance of bringing in new participants, giving their fresh perspectives, and also to ensure a broad inclusion. So we make sure that we actually have all regions and all stakeholders included in the discussions that are going on. Furthermore, we also have remote hubs. So during the annual forums, the IGF facilitates some funding and coordination for remote hubs, where sessions from the annual forum are streamed. And this is in order to ensure broader participation for attendees that might have challenges with attending on site. In addition, there's also some travel support for the Global South, enabling both participants and in some cases journalists also from the Global South to come and travel to the annual forums. We also facilitate youth IGFs during both global, national, and regional IGFs. And we have also developed syllabi for schools on internet governance to support local initiatives, schools, and universities to educate on issues related to internet governance. National and regional IGFs are independent community-driven forums that address internet governance from local perspectives while upholding our IGF principles. And as of April 2025, we have around 177 NRIs across all the UN-defined regions, with several new ones preparing their first events now in 2025 and 2026. And to support them, the IGF hosts regular virtual meetings where the NRI coordinators share updates from their local initiatives and plan engagement in the annual IGF to discuss ways to enhance their collaboration. So here you will see kind of an overview of the process of establishing an NRI. First of all, there will be a public call for inputs that are issued to the community, either regionally, nationally, or subnational. Then there's a consultative process among a multi-stakeholder organizing committee. So basically the coordinators that are establishing the NRI to reach a consensus on the issues that will be discussed for their annual meeting. So this MOC sets the overall meeting framework and discusses potential intersessional work that can be done. And these sessions can either be planned by the community itself, or it can be in collaboration with the MOC, or just the MOC kind of proceeding on themselves. For intersessional work, I briefly outlined before. This is something that we also don't only do globally, but the NRIs themselves can organize intersessional work. For financing, that's also managed by the NRI Secretariat or the multi-stakeholder organizing committee. Usually the NRIs explore local funding, but that can also be international funding sources and grants that can be found. For sustainability of the NRI, There is a process of renewal of the MOC to ensure, I guess, a multi-stakeholder kind of framework for the members of the committee. There's also some efforts put into engaging youth in the local community, and of course other stakeholders such as members of parliament, as we mentioned recently. Now we're ramping up the parliamentary track. And to drive continuous outreach and awareness raising in their communities, and some work also being done on social media. And yeah, some of the most important things I think coming out of at least our global forum, but also the NRIs, is the output documents and the reports that can be used by the stakeholders and the community themselves, and also the member states to kind of advise the outcome documents when they're developing digital policy, so for policymakers. Yeah, here's a picture collage for the last 20 years of the IGF. I think we can go to the next one. Yeah. So over to you, Anja, for this.
No, yes, thank you so much, Herman. So what Herman outlined is really concrete mechanisms to which you can join if any of the topics or issues is of your interest, or if you see that something is missing in the IGF intersessional work, meaning that you would like to bring to the attention of the global community and you don't have a channel to do that, then there is always an open invitation continuously throughout the year to approach us and suggest maybe a way we could cooperate on. Can be a dynamic coalition, perhaps your multi-stakeholder network will form, can be contribution to the annual meeting or other intersessional work streams. So it really depends of the interest. I can give you an example. Earlier today, or for us, it's actually earlier yesterday, we had a very good meeting where we discussed with one big international organization on consumers protection that there should be a channel where we could speak about the consumers protection digitally. And this is something that we're going to be working on in the months to come to understand whether there is appetite from the community to respond to this demand and establish something similar. Everything that Herman explained in terms of the annual meeting that's happening. So the annual meeting usually gathers around, on average, 5,000-6,000 people, especially in the past couple of years, on site, and then a similar number online. There's been like close to 300 discussions happening. All that is distilled into what we call the IGF messages, which are action-oriented points that go then to all stakeholders and inform the global community through a multi-stakeholder lens about what the community sees as a priority, where are the issues, and what could be a potential follow-up. If you come to the IGF annual meeting or participate in person or online, then I think the value is always that you can connect with other stakeholders. So it's not just about organizing or participating in various sessions that you can see publicly, but it's also about meeting bilaterally with stakeholders that are present there. And the IGF Secretariat always arrange those conditions. So we help, for example, set up bilateral meetings, book bilateral rooms, and ensure that, in a more private, intimate conditions, you can meet with stakeholders of interest and then discuss synergies and cooperation. Who you can see there, basically all backgrounds, as Herman was mentioning, from all parts of the world, from civil society, academic organizations to tech companies, technical communities, overall various industries, and others. So it's quite diverse and rich in that sense. And in terms of the substance, so as you can see in our presentation, we are focusing more on the mechanisms, because the substance at the IGF doesn't depend on the Secretariat and our work. It really comes from the community. We are always guided by the community when it comes about what they want to put on a paper, what they want to put into the discourse, what they want to discuss. But there are some common denominators for all the issues, and that is that almost always the concepts of innovation, responsible innovation, accountability of various stakeholders, concept of standards and values is something that always comes up in all discussions. And for us, that's certainly very important to understand all perspectives. There are areas which I think in the near future we're not going to see complete agreement. And I'm going to give you one example. We are working through this policy network on internet fragmentation for the past almost 3 years actively. And what we are seeing there is that the community globally doesn't agree what is the concept of internet fragmentation at the technical level or layer, but also at the policy layer. And there are other areas as well, which I think calls really for these types of forums at the national, regional, and global levels to be there, present for their people within that framework of values and to facilitate the discussions. And finally, we are entering the closing of this presentation. I'm mindful of the time because we want to also hear your feedback, and hopefully your questions, suggestions. So let me just tell you a little bit about the most recent processes within the UN that are very important for the IGF and its community. One of it that you are often hearing are the Sustainable Development Goals. That is the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Ever since it's been introduced in 2015, for us, it's been very clear, and for the community, that digital is an accelerator of sustainable development. And this year, particularly, this is important for us because we had official reporting coming from the UN in terms of the follow-up and monitoring that we are unfortunately behind on achieving the SDGs. So we see the digital really accelerating that potential and hopefully bringing us closer to the objectives that you can see here on this slide by 2030. So all IGF sessions, for example, they do reflect on the SDGs from their perspective. And one of the most recent processes and terminology that perhaps you've heard from the UN and processes around the UN and the digital agenda of the Secretary General that's currently serving in that role is the concept of digital cooperation. And that resulted over time in various processes into the roadmap for digital cooperation, the Our Common Agenda report, and something that we call the Global Digital Compact that has been adopted last year at the General Assembly, and that is now under implementation. There are implications for the IGF. For example, I mentioned that the leadership panel came out of the roadmap for digital cooperation. The Global Digital Compact recognizes the value, specific value of the IGF as an ecosystem, including of the NRIs. And we are following closely this implementation, of course, contributing from our perspective as much as we can. One of the most important for now processes for us, and I'm bringing you back to the very first slide that I've shared because I want to end up with that. You remember that I said that the IGF was one of the major outcomes of the World Summit on the Information Society. This year marks 20 years since the original WSIS, and with that marks the review by the General Assembly of the IGF's mandate. All that will happen in December, 16th to 17th of December, in New York, when we will hear the General Assembly, meaning the member states, what is their view on the current IGF mandate as per the Tunis agenda, and particularly where do we go from 2025 and beyond. So that's a very important milestone for the global community dealing with internet governance. And in that sense, the resolution we have from 2015, speaking about the IGF, will again be looked at. The process of preparing for the WSIS Plus 20 in December is led by two co-facilitators appointed by the president of the GA. That are the Albania and Kenya. They're permanent representatives, ambassadors in New York. And they have been leading or steering the process through really various consultations. They even attended the IGF to consult with the community there. Their efforts resulted in what's called the Elements paper. And more recently, the elements paper evolved into what is called the zero draft. Now, that zero draft is available at the IGF website, and it really outlines what could be a possible vision for the member states to consider in December on the IGF, but beyond just on the concept of information society, or today maybe we refer more to the knowledge society in that sense. So I do encourage you to look at the zero draft, potentially comment. I think 26th of September is the deadline to share your feedback. If I may, just in the past couple of weeks working with Bert, we've been learning about really rich work that exists in Hawaii, which I think Bert was right at the beginning when he said it's not that known to the world. And I think there is really it would be a lost value if we wouldn't bring that to the attention of the global community. So I want to finish by inviting you, first of all, to contribute as a community to the Swiss Plus 20 process, but also to participate in the IGF, because we really would like to not just hear from you and learn from you, but we also would like for the world really to benefit from the good solutions and good ideas that you share, and they're very specific because of your really specific, primarily geographic location. I think there is a particular value. And with that, I'm going to stop here because I know we don't have a lot of time, and I really would like to hear what is your feedback and your questions, and if we can respond, more than happy to do so. Thank you so much for the attention.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Anya and Herman, and that was a really very comprehensive presentation. Where, of course, speaking personally, I mean, I'm very interested in what happens in December, because it really kind of marks the decision on where does the IGF and the whole WSIS process, which is the World Summit on the Information Society, where does that go from 2025 on? So I would personally want to encourage all of you, and that's kind of why you folks all sort of self-selected your participation in this. How do we contribute to that decision making, as it moves forward from the end of 2025 and beyond. But with that said, I want to open it up for any of you to ask Anya and Herman any questions that you might have about IGF and the process, and what does this mean for the future of the internet?
I have a question. Could you give an example of an idea or an initiative that originated on the ground, like at the level that we're at right here, through the channels that you described and became implemented as a policy that we might recognize or be able to wrap our heads around?
Thank you so much. That's a very good question. So yes, the concept of the national IGFs, for example, as initiatives, so as mechanisms, really emerged organically. So, for example, the IGF Secretariat or the Tunis Agenda for the Information Society that gives mandate to the IGF never called for the existence of the local IGFs. But then over time, it really came organically, and shortly after the IGF was convened, because there was this understanding that one global forum is really not enough to address all the specificities of the communities that exist around the world. So the IGF USA, for example, then emerged, I think maybe 10 years ago, if I'm not wrong, or around 10 years ago. But that's, for example, one of the initiatives. And then there are these schools on internet governance that also emerged organically. And sometimes they are part, for example, of a syllabus of universities where they put them as elective courses. Sometimes they are standalone initiatives, but there was always this recognized need that stakeholders from around the world don't really have opportunity to learn about the concept of internet governance, specifically about policy specificities that belong or pertain to their local communities. And so those would be the examples. I have to say that in terms of the concrete policy change, we are seeing that through the concept of national IGFs or even these schools on internet governance. And so thanks to the national IGFs, for example, in Nigeria or the Gambia today, there are robust laws that speak about cybersecurity, particularly about the protection of users online or about meaningful data protection laws that exist that didn't exist, before the community made, I wouldn't say that pressure, but I would say that demand and discussed with the legislators through the national IGFs before those laws were adopted.
I really appreciate it. Thank you.
And Pete, I guess part of that question also, there's a whole, they mentioned everything from civil society, the government, and nonprofits, to technical, to academic, and each one of those may have something that they want to put forward. And it could be, even as an example, an organization like ICANN, that kind of came out of this discussion about how do they find sort of technical governance for things that ICANN might do. So it's all related, but it's all these different groups wanting to make sure that the internet is open, transparent, and accessible to everybody. Sean.
Oh, I was just gonna open the can of worms ask about ICANN, if you could explain the relationship to ICANN. But that might be
Another couple of hours.
Yeah.
That's such a good question, and indeed, but I'll try to just simplify it. ICANN is critically important in the domain name system, and for the IGF, of course, very important. I mentioned the technical community as a standalone stakeholder group, and ICANN is part of that stakeholder group, together with some other well-known global international players, and of course, very importantly, equally important, those smaller players at local levels, which maybe the global community is not aware of. But let me mention some. You mentioned ICANN, the Internet Society, ITF, IEEE. So those are really important players in regional registries, then national registries, and so on. ICANN for two reasons. First of all, we have very close relationship. They participate in the IGF since the beginning. They were among those stakeholders who initially called for the establishment of the IGF, and they are certainly one of the most important players when it comes about maintaining and running the IGF in this form. They are even our donors. The IGF Secretariat is also present at their meetings because that ICANN has this multi-stakeholder community-centered model of just governing the whole domain name system. And so for us, it's very important to be part of those conversations. Then finally, I mentioned the concept of internet fragmentation, ensuring that the technical layer remains as it is now, which is unique, that we have the internet as network of networks, is certainly extremely important, and ICANN there plays a crucial role when it comes about the domain name system and the protection of it. And so in that sense, they're really the heart of the critical core infrastructure when it comes about the internet. And if we don't preserve that and maintain that, then we certainly can't speak about the policy that's aligned with the IGF principles we mentioned. So I'll just stop here, but happy to take it also maybe over the mailing lists or similar after Bert connects us.
Thanks a lot, Anya, Herman. I think we probably will end now, since I see the group from the 5 o'clock convening, entering into the room. So I have recorded this, and I will get it to everyone who is interested in continuing this conversation about the IGF. And of course, Anya and Herman, they're pretty accessible, except you got to figure that there's a 12-hour difference. So, just understand that when you're emailing them at noon, it's midnight there. So with that, I want to say thank you very much. I did print out the one pager, so I will hand this out to everybody. And we will keep the discussion going, and we'll see what we can do to establish some kind of foothold presence in Hawaii with the IGF.
Oh, we look forward to it. Thank you so much. It's been such great pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you, Anya. Thank you, Herman.
Thank you, everyone.